Carlin Grabner, Executive Director for the Women's Fund of the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. And today, with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, we have an expert, Lindsey Loewe, joining us to talk about, some of the areas she focuses on and just kind of to understand mental health a little bit better, and particularly in the worlds of moms and our youth right now with what they're all facing. But Lindsey, welcome. And
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your work?
Sure. So I have been a mental health and substance use provider for just over 10 years. I got my start at the county. So Green Lake County really gave me this strong foundation of seeing people across the board and understanding a lot of different challenges that go on in our community, and really how many challenges are left unnoticed or undernoticed. So given that, I left the county so that we could focus more on trauma-informed care and trauma-informed practices. Trauma-informed, if you don't know, really is just, we look at what have your experiences been and what has gotten you to this point versus something being wrong with you. So really working to break down the stigma around mental health and even substance use disorders. And so we've been in private practice over in Ripon for 8 years. We'll be going on our 9th year. I work a lot with children and adolescents, but our clinic sees the people across the lifespan and from every demographic.
Wonderful. Jumping right in, I guess, what are you seeing right now with the whole, or is it too early to see much with the whole coronavirus, and do you or other professionals have predictions on what is going to come out of this for those of us in our mental health?
Yeah, I think a lot of what's coming out in the news right now is pretty accurate, where our shadow pandemic is likely going to be mental health. And we are bracing ourselves and trying to prepare ourselves and bring on alternate resources and alternate therapists for, kind of the tsunami that might be coming through. We recognize as clinicians that this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So we're really trying to encourage people right now to pay attention to specific symptoms that they might be having, and then learn how to manage with those or cope with those with some of the tools that are out there. There are a ton of really great resources for people to access online and even in person. So right now we're trying to focus on symptom management with the understanding that once our world and our nation has a little bit more stability, we can start focusing more on the impact and the trauma that this is having for people. But I think right now we need to focus on getting through isolation and reopening and everything that's coming with that.
I like your term shadow pandemic, because I think that is true. And I have a couple comments. One is our Women's Fund 10 years ago now spent a couple years focusing on isolation and how devastating it can be to your health, and funny because now with this happening, it's just right in front of all of our faces at all times that that topic is very serious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you feel over the last couple decades, let's say, people are this, I don't want to call it stigma, that word is used a lot, but that people are more willing to come forward to get help when they need it? Do you think that's changing as life goes on here?
I do think that it's changing. It is still really interesting though, because in the mental health field, we hear a lot about men not seeking resources and not seeking mental health help, but we know it's actually the opposite. I have one statistic. So nationwide, 6.8 million approximately people are affected by just any generalized anxiety disorder. We've all felt it to some degree. Only 43% are being treated. And of that 43%, the women are actually less likely to seek treatment up front or right away. And they're finding that a lot of that is because of, the stigma, which I had somebody tell me stigma is actually, it's discrimination and oppression that we're putting on other people. So that's interesting to me, that women are more likely to wait until their symptoms get really bad to seek help, whereas men, if they feel like something's just kind of off or they're noticing this anxiety, they'll go in and try to get it dealt with. So women are carrying that discomfort and tension a lot longer than men are. So I thought that was a pretty staggering statistic.
Yeah, I actually find that as a big surprise.
Yes, I do too, because we know that women are relational beings. And that's part of what's causing them to kind of hold on or hold out for seeking treatment, because women, just by their brain development, women get most of their esteem and their worth from external sources. So if I'm struggling with anxiety and I don't know how my peer group will receive that or perceive that, I'm less likely to go and get the help or acknowledge, hey, I can't handle all of it, right? Because we try to keep going and going and be everything for everyone.
Interesting. Bringing up, I know this is a topic you understand very well, but bringing up the brain development conversation, and again, now men have a lot on their plate too, but a lot of us as women, the workforce is changing for women. This pandemic has done a lot in that situation. Now we're homeschooling on top of a lot of us working full time, but what can you talk about brain development, and specifically maybe in kids?
Sure, absolutely. So I love brain development because it's pretty concrete knowledge that we can all relate to, and then we don't have to keep second guessing or challenging some of the information that's out there. Women, our brains go like this, right? We're all intertwined. If you've ever read the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, it's pretty accurate. Women's brains are like one big ball of string that is constantly going and going and going. That's how our brain is developed. Men's brain, on the other hand, they're very compartmentalized. So that's why a lot of men can put something over here and move on to the next thing. Whereas women, we're still thinking about what was over there in addition to this, and now we're thinking about what's coming up. So our brains are really wired differently than men's. I think it's a great thing, but it also presents women and children with challenges, right? And it opens the door for a lot of anxiety. Anxiety tends to be we're trying to do the splits. We've got one foot in the past, what I did yesterday, what I didn't get accomplished, and one in the future, what I have to get done or what I'm going to do. It creates tension. And so we need to learn how to kind of close the splits and come back to center. So if we can, knowing that our brains tend to work like a big ball of yarn, try to piece it out, try to slow it down, and try to talk ourselves through, okay, this is what I can focus on right now, then we will actually feel a greater sense of stability, and I think a lot less anxiety. We know too, brain development wise, our brains go through specific stages of development throughout our lives. So for girls, the change from child to teen is one of those really crucial brain windows where our brain is changing and growing very rapidly. we know that during that time, so anywhere between 9 and probably 12 years of age,
Mm.
a girl's brain goes back to what we call the latency stage, which is very similar to after birth. So our brain that has been working to develop from bottom up and back to front now does that again. And so girls' emotions or teenage girls' emotions that seem sporadic and out of control and like, why are you acting like a baby? Well, because literally that's what their brain is doing. Their
Mm.
brain is going back to that latency stage to redevelop and strengthen different neural pathways. So when we look at our teen girls and we say they are dramatic and out of control, yeah, they just are. That's just the way that their brain is working right now. So as parents, how can we just connect with them and sit with them through all of those changes instead of try to fix something that really is a normal process?
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating, especially since I have a 12-year-old. So
Yes.
that makes a lot
Yes.
of sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but we at the Women's Fund have done this girls granting process
Yeah.
for 10 years, I think, and we bring 16, 17, and 18-year-old girls together and give them $10,000 and let them have the experience of walking through what it's like to be a donor, a philanthropist, and then they get to give the $10,000 away. And many years, I'm sure you can imagine, mental health has been a conversation, and mental health for our kids. But I was super surprised this year. Their topic was the girls wanted to offer the community more education and more support about understanding things like trauma informed care and understanding mental health. So I kind of was, they haven't come to a conclusion yet, but I was shocked that now it's not about them this year. It's about how do you get others to understand it.
That's amazing. I mean, that says a lot about the group of girls that you have had over the years. And now this year, they're shifting the focus from themselves to we just want people to understand. And maybe through understanding, you know, it'll have the ripple effect of us feeling better and our mental health and wellness being cared for.
Yeah, it was fascinating. It was fascinating.
That's
Uh,
such an awesome program.
Yeah, and I think for those that don't understand, like you said, the trauma informed care or the ACEs and all of those types of things really do. But again, it's understanding that material. Like I do now professionally understand that material, but how you react to it to individuals as just a layperson, not trained in any way, is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where the group of girls that you have, it sounds like, are really going to work to break down that stigma. They just want people to understand instead of judge,
Right.
and that's huge. They're really, really doing great things then.
Yeah, and you're right. That is the word they used a lot, is judging. So it was, yeah, it's always fascinating. Every year I learn more from them than I ever think I will. Yeah, it's a great experience. So a couple of questions in closing. One would be, where do you, I'd love to know, like, if you had a magic wand, what areas do we as funders and donors in our community, or just as a community whole, what areas can we do better, or what areas can we do better to work and baby steps on this to make it a more digestible conversation, especially with the future?
Yeah, I think, let's see, my magic wand would probably go to where your group of girls are leaning.
Hmm.
And I'm a firm believer that education and understanding is really the key to breaking cycles of wellness becoming illness or mental health becoming mental health concerns. People no matter what your race, no matter what your color or your gender, people have an innate need to just feel understood and to feel heard. That's really what's at the foundation. And to start to help people feel heard and then lead to understanding, it has to start with knowledge, and it has to start with education. Because if I understand a little bit more about the brain and teenage girls and behavior patterns, then I'm less likely to judge them for their actions, right? Because now I understand that you're not just being this wild teenager. Your brain, that's actually just what it's doing, and it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Hmm.
And so I think it brings down the judgment. So knowledge, understanding, education is a huge, huge, huge area when it comes to mental health and wellness.
Wow, thank you. And you do work in the schools too, right? Do I
Yeah.
remember? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We work closely in the schools, and we have a few different school districts that are really going to focus on their staff wellness, because again, it's a ripple effect. So if we can focus on taking care of the people who take care of our children, then our children will also, thrive and prosper in that. So that's really exciting to think about schools really looking towards how do we invest in our educators,
Yeah.
understanding that it will flow down to our students then.
Well, and that's interesting too. We just, going back to the Women's Fund, we just did an initiative on parenting and took, I don't know, probably 150 parents and did focus groups. And the reason we came to it was, we are always investing a lot of money into our youth and working very hard with our youth, but it's also if our parents are still a mess and not where they need to be and understanding what their needs are, they, like you just said, can be more useful to their children and others. And we kind of always like want to go in at the bottom, and it's like, well, we're trying to go in at the middle or the top, I guess, to see if we can have any impact there.
I think, a metaphor to think about is if you build a home on a foundation that is not stable, right? Like, would you go in, you buy an old house, would you go in and plow the house and rebuild on that foundation if it's cracked and falling apart? No, you would probably have that foundation repaired, correct? Before you built the house. Because if you build a house on cracked or crumbling foundation, something that's not stable, the house is going to wobble, and it's not going to be stable. So if you start at the foundation, which is what you're talking about, helping the parents, educating the community, now you're repairing the foundation, and the house will be more stable going up. So we really try to view our youth as being, the second, third, fourth level of the home, in our community and our caregivers and our parents being part of that foundational.
That's awesome. That's great. I'm glad our girls are smart and on the right track, and I'm glad
Yes.
that we're doing stuff that is on the right track as well. Any last thoughts, Lindsey, or anything you want to talk
No,
about that I didn't get to?
I think I would really like to thank you for the work that you are doing, and that the Women's Fund, and it's unbelievable. And I would love more people to know about it and potentially help invest in programs like this, because it is such a need that is either less understood or misunderstood. And I don't know, I'm just really proud of being in a community that has a foundation like that. So thank you for all of the work you do. I know it's not easy work.
Well, and yeah, thanks for recognizing that. It's sometimes you do wonder, because we're a little bit further. I always say we're not the people tutoring the kids or petting the puppies. We're strategically trying to figure out what the next issue is for our women and our families, and try to figure out how we can attack it with research, and sometimes that's it's not right in front of your face what we just accomplished, but our people, our board, everybody works, our donors, they work really hard to try to make this community better every day. They really do.
Yeah. I thought of one point I would love to leave you with, and potentially some of the moms or women or girls or whomever out there, will listen to this. We really try to encourage people to practice the pause. So pausing will provide you with a sense of grounding, meaning if I have 5 kids in my home that I'm trying to homeschool, and I'm also sitting down at my computer and trying to get some work done, and my kid is screaming, just do an internal check-in and just pause. Take your hands away from your computer, close your eyes, and just try to pause, take a breath or two, tap into what your body is telling you. Our body will always tell us first when we're stressed or when we're anxious. So just pause and then try to go back to your day, or go back to your screaming screaming children or interrupting children. Yeah.
That's fabulous advice. It really is. And it's just something we can do that's small.
Great.
So thank you for your time, Lindsey.
Yes, thank you so much.